Welcome to this episode of Q&A with Liturgy Man. I'm Taylor Burton-Edwards, Liturgy Man, your Director of Worship Resources with Discipleship Ministries of the United Methodist Church. I am your apportionment dollars at work to help you strengthen worship and the understanding of worship where you are. Today's question is one that we've received a variety of times, a variety of ways over the last several weeks, and it's about resources for Advent wreaths. And most specifically, why is it that we have in the Book of Worship special resources for the lighting of Advent candles, page 262 and following in the Book of Worship, but we don't have any for Christmas Eve, even though on page 238 of the Book of Worship, we find this description. Visuals of the season may include an Advent wreath, in parentheses, an evergreen wreath with 4 purple candles and a central white candle added on Christmas Eve or day. So why only 4, one for each of the 4 weeks, and not one for Christmas Eve or Christmas Day? There are 2 kinds of answers to that. One is most sort of directly rooted in what we have provided in the Book of Worship, and that is the recognition that there is no special ceremony needed for the lighting of the candle that might be in the middle of an Advent wreath during Christmas. You would simply light it and not do anything special with it on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. We don't provide resources because you don't need them. Just do the lighting. The ritual itself carries the message that is needed. The second one really goes back more into the history of Advent wreaths in general, and how it is that that central candle got there in the first place. Advent wreaths, as they started moving into practice in churches, and not simply as North German and Scandinavian home devotional practices, always had only 4 candles, just the 4 candles for the 4 weeks of Advent. It's only in the 20th century, as church supply houses start manufacturing these stands for Advent wreaths, that it starts to make sense to put something in the middle of the stand, that a white candle, a large white pillar candle, starts being made provision for, and that gets formed into something that looks sort of like, but different than, a Paschal candle, especially for those traditions that don't use Paschal candles normally. So you could say that that Christ candle piece that has been added in some structures of Advent wreaths for some Protestants is kind of the product of church supply houses. It does not really reflect the earlier tradition of Advent wreaths, which were simply for Advent itself. So, does this mean you should not use the Christ candle thing if you have it, and if that's something you're part of using? No, go ahead and do that. You don't need any special liturgy for it. That's why the Book of Worship doesn't provide it. Just light it. And also, you might note that the way that many traditions that have had the Advent wreath for a longer period handle on Christmas Eve and throughout Christmas season, that wreath is either they don't have the central candle, but they turn all 4 of the candles into white candles and light all of them throughout the 12 days of Christmas. Or they only light the central candle and they do not light the 4 Advent candles because Advent is over and Christmas has begun, and they are 2 different seasons. I hope this has been helpful. Remember, you can always contact me, worship@umcdiscipleship.org, through our UMC Worship Facebook group, or drop a line on this page, and perhaps your question or comment may become the basis for a future episode of Q&A with Liturgy Man. May the peace of Christ be always with you.